Yikes. It's another week, another show. Welcome to another conversation with me, Carlz. The only show where I take whatever I said about a subject, maybe a week or so before, in entertainment and media. I give it a whirl and try to not translate it, but think about it in another language. Hello. This week, I'm talking about the hit Netflix series Adolescence, which, for the first disclaimers of the night, the original episode, the Spanish version of the episode, was made with a dear friend of mine who just so happens to be a social worker. It didn't happen because I wanted to bring him as a social worker and particularly talk about the series. It happened because he recommended it. So I'm not really that good with the Netflix front page. Oh, I don't want to pretend I'm like just some hipster doofus like Kramer. That's a Seinfeld reference. But I'm just not too good at watching whatever like the algorithm tells you to watch, right? But somehow this series picked up on its own, be whatever reason it was, right? And I came with no expectative or expectations, if you want, whatsoever to this series. And it was a great watch. It was a great watch. It took me by surprise because since I didn't know anything about it, again, as usually my conversations are full of spoilers, so it's a free speaking segment, you can say. So it took me by surprise, and what took me by surprise is probably what took everyone by surprise. So of course you gotta begin any discussion on Adolescence talking about the structure or the format it's made with this not new but like really hard to pull off the format of one shot. So it's just I think it's 4 or 5 episodes. 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 4 episodes, right? They are all shot in just one single continuous shot, right? And why is this so curious and important to think about it? Because if you come to the series not knowing that, um, the introduction to the series is really strange. So, first episode, which set up the basic plot of the series, right? This kid gets accused of murder by another kid. So this kid murders another kid. So they go and pick him up at his house in some suburb in Britain, like London or whatever, right? I'm pretty far from there, so I'm not too familiar with that. And it's funny because when you begin watching the series with this one shot format, it felt like two things. One, like an action movie at the beginning, and two, strangely, like as a documentary. So I know the Stephen Graham guy, right? Like from Peaky Blinders and everything, and I know it was fiction, but I never did realize how effective it is for a single shot, like any sort of like video or movie, to be shot in one shot. How effective it is to get you involved in it. So this is the first sliver of genius from Adolescence. Like no matter what you thought about it or no matter what your expectations were, the way it's shot from the beginning, it absorbs you. It's not realism for the sake of being realism, right? At least not at the beginning. So at the beginning, you might get like a little bit confused. Like, what is the point of this realism? And I'm not sure if that was their intention, but that is certainly the effect, right? So the first episode, it's all about him getting arrested, taken to the police station, and getting like the first developments of like common known due process. I guess I'm not familiar with the British due process, right? But they explain some of it right there. And as the episode progresses, you realize something that is gonna come up all over the series, and something that has been developing in my mind which is sort of like an expansion of my previous conclusions, and it's the fact that nobody seems to act in the series. And what do I mean by this? Is that at every stage of the show, you are expecting like a dramatic moment, and by the way it's shot and by the way it's shown, it challenges your expectations. Like, you don't really realize how often you expect like a dramatic moment to happen on a fictional setting. Like, you just don't. It seems like, okay, I'm watching a movie, right? So I'm expecting that at some point, like, I don't know, an alien is gonna burst out of somebody's chest and like something really crazy is gonna happen, and like I'm gonna be drawn in by the fantastic realism or whatever you want to call it, like that comes out of having a fictional setting, right? You're expecting that at every moment with Adolescence. But as the dawn of episode 4 begins with an amazing Aurora song, you realize that the show never takes that turn. So structure wise, it goes even deeper than that. So you get 4 episodes, right? First one is about him getting arrested. Second one is about the police going to his school to investigate more clues, right? Or to investigate whatever they're trying to finish the case. I think they were looking for the murder weapon. So third episode is him already in like sort of like juvenile rehabilitation thing, and he's got this interview with I guess she's either a psychologist or a social worker, one of those. And episode 4 is his family, like after he's been arrested. It's like the life of the family after that. It's curious to think how they chose every episode to tell different parts of the same story without ever dipping into the like the area of like overwhelming acted drama. Like it's funny to think that the show is fiction, but it's so realistic. You never expect realism to be achieved by just having this one shot format. Like, it could be the opposite, right? Like, I mean, life is not directed shot by somebody, right? Unless you believe in Jesus or some shit like that. Life doesn't work like that. But you seem to get used to think about it in that way. Like every stage of your life or your day is like a scene. So strange. So when a product like this challenges you to see like a straight road, right? You sort of realize that one of the things that are most important in reality is that there are way too many more things happening at the same time that you like to think about. So it sort of have like the opposite effect. Like, for example, in episode 2, we follow the police, the main detective, right? He goes through the kid's school, meeting different people, like asking different questions. And you think, for example, at one point he meets like the girl that was murder's best friend. He meets her, they have an interaction, and at some point we stop looking at her, but only we see her back at the end of the episode. And since the show is shot in just one continuous take, right, you sort of get into this realization that she never stopped existing, right? And somehow that gives you more realism when you start realizing that an event like this doesn't affect just the family. Like it spreads in so many levels, right? So structure wise, the last thing I have to say is that something that we sort of developed during my Spanish episode, and I sort of like how we turn out to this point, that structure wise, since the show has abandoned like extreme dramatism, it doesn't really take sides. Like this is really interesting. Like you could ask the question, right? Why don't they show more of the girl background, like the victims background? And I gotta be careful when I say this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. It's because the show doesn't want you to think that she's the only victim. So it's not about defending the fact that the kid murdered her, but the show is trying to tell us that she's not the victim. For that matter, neither is him, right? The balance between realism and not taking sides, it's really interesting because, for example, we talked about with my friend about the family's portrayal, right? So this is a show that is not really high on the drama, right? So when you see the family, it's just like a regular family. Again, as I said before, you are expecting on every turn to have like some really big revelation, right? And here's when we have to talk about Stephen Graham's acting ability. And also, this is also related to structure. His casting was brilliant because even though he's not necessarily a bad guy or a good guy, right? It challenged your dramatic senses because the way he looks and the way he behaves, it does make you feel like he's gonna explode at any moment, right? Like, you don't want to think of him as a bad guy, but they obviously shows him because he looks, how can you say it in a non-offensive way? He looks rough, right? He doesn't look like necessarily the caring father or whatever you want to call him, right? Like he looks like a tough guy. And like the mom, they have like that moment during episode 4, like when he's interacting with the mom, right? And like he seems at every turn be ready to explode, right? And it happens with different characters. For example, the detective, right? We see him like getting this revelation out of like the new ways of society and kids when his son explains to him, right, parts of what the internet culture is. He's like, oh dad, like you haven't seen this like that, I think it was Instagram, you haven't seen this Instagram, you don't know what this means, like this means this and that. And like the detective gets like shocked, and like you see him at the end of the episode going back for his son and like trying to approach him and trying to sort of like take him back that time, because he realizes that there is a bunch of shit that his son experiences that he has no idea that it's there. And the series does it like really interesting because, as I said before too, right, we don't see what happens with the detective later, as usually the way things happen in real life, right? We don't know what happened with him later. We don't know what happened with his son. We don't know if they make up, if they found common ground, if he learned whatever he needed from that. We don't know. And in episode 3, which is might be the best one, right, we get another brilliance of structure when they introduce the social worker or psychologist, right? We talk about this with my friend on the Spanish version, and he also made me not necessarily realize but confirm some stuff about how women are treated on the workplace, especially in that area, right? So there is a balance happening between the, I think I'm just gonna call her a psychologist, right? Between the psychologist's job and the context and the content of the series itself. So that fourth episode, no, the third episode, sorry, It's so good because it begins with her coming into work, right? And like in any other circumstance, they would make like a really explicit and like in your face point about her like being a woman in that area, right? And they do this in this such a subtle way, right? Like the guard start like not necessarily hitting on her, but like being like sort of inappropriate towards her, and like he behaves weirdly, and like it's funny because you're already in episode 3, right? So you already know how the series work, but you keep expecting drama to come out of reality, like for him to touch her or for him to like be explicitly inappropriate towards her, but he never does. And again, you get this like freight truck in your face, like, dude, like, you don't need drama, like you don't need for him to touch her or like be explicitly like a pervert. You don't need that because that's not how it happens in real life necessarily, but it happens every day. So that whole third episode, even though just one thing is happening, where she's like sitting down interviewing the kid, right, getting his like psychological profile, even though one thing is happening there, many things are being shown. Like, for example, when the kid sort of begins like to explode, so many things happen in that scene, right? Even by episode 3, you are not necessarily, like, as I said, the series doesn't really take sides. It really presents itself and the case in a really neutral way. So we don't go like, oh, he's guilty, right? Like oh no, he's guilty, like he's a kid, right? So we don't go like that. But at some point when he explodes, he doesn't necessarily reveal his guilt or like his like culpability, you could say. But what he reveals is like the commonly known toxic masculinity that lies inside of him, right? He explodes in this really like rageful like banter when he goes like, oh, like, who are you, like, what are you, like during the process of that episode you can see him getting progressively angry, and it's not directly related to the case or to his guilt or to his, it's related to the fact that he's talking to a woman. So the flow of the episode sets you up and sort of achieves something that the series does so well, and this is something that we also developed during my Spanish episode that has stayed with me. And it might sound a little bit strange, but it's true. It puts you in the position of a character. So it's delicate. And I really hope nobody put themselves on the position of the kid. That would be a little bit strange. But it puts you in the position of each one of those characters. Like, let's say, if you felt somehow not attached, but if you felt somehow related to the guard, for example, you could see your behavior or your shortcomings in him. If you saw something of yourself on the kid, right, which they do so good, because at the beginning the kid is so calm, like you're trying to understand him, right? But when he finally explodes, then you move to the position of the psychologist, right? Being challenged by a force that is stronger than you. They did a really good job at not having the psychologist character which is great in it, by the way. Like, she doesn't just break down, right? I don't know how directed that was, but that is so strong. Like, she doesn't cry, but she sobs afterwards. And how could you not be empathetic with that? Like being in that position of being like receiving this hate, but having to resist, right? It's all about empathy at the end. It's all about empathy, and by episode 3 towards episode 4, you sort of like begin to change the shift of your understanding of the series, which is also a brilliant move overall, right? Like, you go, okay, from this first police oriented episode with like some crazy ideas of like, oh, did he do it, did he not, or like you get into this adrenaline of like this adrenalinic way of like what's going on and like who's gonna happen, and right, then you go to episode 2 and you start like get these revelations of the real subject of the series. The smallest a child break. Hey, Michael. You get these really small clues of what the series really is about. And again, as I said at the beginning, I did not know anything about the series. So by episode 2, it started to give you clues. You had no idea that this is going to be a series not about murder, not about family necessarily or exclusively, even though all of these topics are in there. But this is going to be about bigger societal issues, right? Ideas of sexuality and masculinity in today's youth. And by episode 3, which is almost like an emotional reflection on the things that happened before, like how could you not? And this is something that we dive a lot with my friend during my Spanish episode, and it goes beyond the current phenomena of incel culture or that type of new forms of toxic masculinity. It's not that we that are a little bit older, we are not free of it. Of course, it's part of us, like, right? We were born and bred into the a masculine world, right? Like we are men and men's world. So at any point we are part of it, whether we want it or not, right? But the things that it's sort of revealing is that, and it happened to especially me and my friend, like, even though we struggle with our masculinities on a daily basis, unless you just embrace like being bad and like whatever, right? Like, in that case you're a little bit fucked. At any point, like by episode 3, right, where you start to realize that then the series is not going to give you an answer, a thesis, a proposal, like, oh, my toxic masculinity is bad because this and that, and you gotta, and this is our solution for it. No, this is a question asking series, which to me, as a sort of a philosopher, at least on my papers, it's really interesting. Like, questions are always more interesting than the limitation of answers, because there are subjects like this who like that do not have a straight answer. You can have a straight judgment on it, like a straight moral judgment. This is bad, which of course you do, but it doesn't have a straight answer on how to deal with it. So where is this reflection leading? By episode 3, to me, it was unavoidable to think what it would take for a kid to cross the fundamental line of taking somebody else's life, which is no small thing, right? It gives you an eye-opener without like being condescending. What does this mean? It means that The series is not gonna go like, okay, you know that toxic masculinity is the bane of our current existence, and our younger people really need to get into. No, no. Oh, thank you, Ryusei. I'm drinking tea still. Thank you. The series is not gonna do that, and it doesn't do that. It gives you the biggest question with the biggest act, which is the taking of a life of another human being. And this is sort of what led us towards the crafting of our conclusions towards the end of our discussion during the Spanish episode, right? So we ask ourselves the question, what would it take for a human being to take another human being's life? And then you start like opening this Pandora's box. Like for example, what did the kid do? Like if they show you that the parents are just regular caring parents, you go like, shit, I had regular caring parents. Like how come I never kill anyone? Like there's a bunch of questions that are unanswered in the series, but they are there. Like the kid had like a knife brought up by a friend. Then they show you, they reveal that the girl herself was also bullying this guy, right? Giving you the all the elements, or the most important elements of the current discussion, right? About the internet culture that is behind how these kids are brought up today. Like it can't be just a fluke or like a random moment in time. It's a whole culture that led to this. And no, I mean not me, but somebody can write a whole paper about it and like go through all of the elements that create incel and like toxic masculinity online and like bullying culture. But every kid in this series seems to have a drama. I remember myself, like when I was in high school, right? I had no social networks, like no smartphones, none of that shit. None of that existed, right? So your world is pretty small. It's not that I didn't have toxic masculinity. It's not like we didn't have bullying. All of that shit is old. But when you expand it to today's standards, what you get is this really overwhelming reality that seems to consume people beyond their smaller spheres of reality. What do I mean? What do I mean by this? Probably in his daily normal life, right? This kid had a loving family. They show you his room, right? They show you like his dad and like and his mom and his sister, like how everybody loves him. Like they make the effort of not making him like this Phantom of the Opera drama protagonist, but like, oh my god, I've turned bad because the world is so unfair to me. They don't do that. But by creating the series the way they did it, by expanding the circle through the clues they give you, the characters they introduce, they start expanding that world. Even though they don't say it explicitly, they expand this world. And what happens with this expanded world? You feel the kids' pressure. You feel the kids' social reality, like pressuring him, making him explode. To me, it's impossible to think something similar. I grew up in a small town without internet. Like I had like a handful of friends whom I could like see every day, like no bullying for. I mean, I did make fun of like the kid we all make fun in class, but like it's really hard for me to understand how the work could be so overwhelming. But the series does it. Like the series does the great exercise of challenging like us, maybe older people, or us, um, people across the pond, right? Like I don't live in, not even remotely close to England, right? Like the series crafts this perfect bomb that it's relatable at the same time it's foreign, right? That means that it works for every sort of audience anywhere, and that explains the success of the series. I've been talking about structure a lot, right? And that is why. That is why. Like for example, I was remember the other day the Hooligan movie, right? Like with Frodo. I gotta mention Frodo. Hey Cesar, I gotta mention Frodo again, right? I gotta mention him. But like these are highly cultured movies or like products that somehow they still seem foreign. Like even if you have like gangs or like how do you call it, like hooligans, just like sports fans that are like really rowdy. Even if you had those, they have a cultural element that it's undeniable. But Adolescence manages to avoid all of that and create this really human experience, you know. And and by episode 4, that's what you get. So if this is a bubble you're crafting for an episode 1, right, it's taking you through a ride that by the end of it you realize that you don't need to be anyone special to understand it, right? So for example, a great part of episode 4 happens between a mom, dad, and sister. Like, right, they're riding the van. They're going to the supermarket to get like paint thinner or something. And like, how could you not be there if you ever shared a moment with your family? Like when they call them like they're driving and they call him like the kid calls the dad on his birthday, right? And they are all of them are like sort of shocked. Like, how could you not see yourself in it? How could you not see yourself at some point of your life when some news from your family came through? Like, these are all universal empathetic moments. And probably the cheesiest like moment in the whole series is the end itself, right? The ending itself, when like dad goes to his son's bedroom, right, with that awesome Aurora song playing, and he breaks down and he says, I'm sorry I failed you. But you see, the point is, he doesn't know why he failed, neither do we, right? This should happen by the overwhelming elements that constitute this like huge sphere of reality that came crashing down in this kid that made him do the unthinkable, right? Break that, like that limit that you cannot go back. And it's really overwhelming. Like I told my friend during my Spanish episode that like I'm not a perfect guy in any sense, but I couldn't like ever even fathom to take another person's life. Well, I'm not. I haven't even like fought anyone in my life, right? I never had the personality to be like to even raise my hand to anyone, right? But like, it's not about what they can do and you can't do. It's about reflecting on the reality that make this thing happens, right? As I've been saying, the series is not, it's fantasy, it's fiction, but it's so realistic that it's challenging just to watch at any moment. The way they chose the characters and the process of the series itself leaves room for everyone to feel connected by any character in it. Anyone. And this is no small thing. It's really important that the series didn't take sides, for example. It's really important that they didn't focus on just one protagonist. It's really important that it spread itself out to different topics. And like as someone that has tried in more than one occasion to either write a fiction or like write story, like this is not going to be a good example given the circumstances, but I used to watch the Neil Gaiman's masterclass. I know he's not in a really good place right now, but I still love many of his work, right? And in his masterclass, like he challenged you to think about situations, to sort of like see the elements of the situation and move them around, whatever. But the point is, when you write a story, you often have the beginning, the middle, of the end settled down on your brain. It's like, okay, I'm gonna write about like the War of the Ring, right? I know Frodo begins. I know what he does in the middle, right? The breaking of the fellowship. I know how it ends, right? I know he gets to Mount Doom, and I make my point. He fails to throw the ring into the fire, right? I make my point, and then he leaves for the Undying Lands. I make my point. It has a middle, an end, and so you sort of like see how hard it is to come up with these 4 episodes. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy to choose the exact amount of clues to make a point, not make it a limited point, and make it accessible to anyone in the world. Like, this is no small feat that they did with this series. And then you realize that it's probably because the end message of the series, right, was an open reflection. Right? This is not I mean, it is kind of a but it's not just some social commentary. This is not just a drama, right? This is a call to arms, I was going to say, because it sounds so natural, right? But this is a call to think. We talked about it with my friend, and I think it's a great conclusion that this series is so relevant because it is challenging you to think about topics that are way more needed to be talked nowadays than ever. It really is. So it's like a blessing for it to be on the front of Netflix and be like so well received and everything. It's a blessing because this is no small thing that it's doing. We think about it, it's like Netflix is a worldwide platform, right? Why would they put like a British drama on the front? I kept thinking about my other next favorite drama, British drama. It's not Doctor Who. It was the Broadchurch. Like in Broadchurch, like for whoever who hasn't seen it, it is also like police detective drama. It has 2 doctors in it, okay, from Doctor Who. But at some points in during Broadchurch, it gets super British, and like it gets so unrealistic, and like it starts showing like places and like attitudes and like ways to be that are like are so British that like okay. Well, we are now in an age where people like watch Korean dramas and they don't give a shit. But the mere fact that they call it Korean dramas It should point out to some like undeniable fact that this shit is like Korean drama, right? It happens in Korea. But Adolescence might be a British drama, but whatever happened in Adolescence happens everywhere. I don't know if I should give like props to fucking Netflix for like maybe intentionally giving us this masterpiece of TV and making us like think about these subjects. Like I don't want to think that Netflix has like a fucking social consciousness or like I don't know, like they really are in for like changing the world for the better or something. Like I don't want to be that guy. I won't be. But the fact remains, like when you ask yourself, why is Adolescence good? If it seems to be just this one snapshot of reality, no matter how universal it is, right? It's just this just one snapshot of reality. I hope they don't do like Adolescence 2 and they show us like what happened to them when they were older. I mean, it could be good, but they already made their point, right? I don't think they do. But why is it good? Because it challenges you to talk about the subject, and it's crafted in a way that it's not limiting but opening. It doesn't close any conversation but opens them, right? And you're gonna get all sort of emotions out of it. I myself, like, I thought about mom and dad. I thought like about how they raised me. I thought about like so we talked a little bit about also about parasocial relations, the hot topic that I bet every sociologist on earth is already writing a paper on, right? This new like parasocial relationship and like admire people on the internet that you don't really know. Something that we all, I mean, not all of us, but many of us fell into this category, right? Like we all have experienced this closeness with others in a way with where otherhood has changed dramatically. Like the internet has a lot of good things, right? But also have a bunch of bad things. And the crafting of these fucked up realities and fucked up ideas, it seems to be overwhelming. It seems to be the norm on how people understand the internet, right? And you get challenged every day, even if you didn't grow up with it. You get challenged every day to see your role in any relationship, right? So if you are like if you try to create content like me, or if you are in any way related to like these modern platforms of communication, Twitch and like TikTok and everything, you realize that there is a bunch of shit that is happening right beside you that you have no control over it. One of these is like the internet culture and parasocial relationship and incel culture. Like it happens right next to you, man. Like right next to you. Like you go into a Twitch channel and you try to be social, right? You try to be nice. You try to talk normally with people, but the guy right next to you is like, oh, take off your shirt. It's like it's right next to you. Are you out of place? Are you out of time? Like who knows? But if you're really living in that same reality and you're asking yourself the same questions, like you gotta at least, I don't know, like be sure that whatever you are thinking or doing is not following that example, right? But at the same time, this is, even though it's a warped society, it's society nonetheless. So it's a continuous struggle to be part of something, while at the same time You want to be away from it. It's really hard. Maybe some people like me, we are more like old school or whatever, right? So you come through all of these things with this uh, old idea of like I don't know, like I come to Twitch and I think like I'm in high school and I come in and like, yeah, oh, this is me, like uh, like this is me, this is all there is, right? And like you don't wanna like, oh, I don't wanna mess with the crazy people, like no, I wanna stay away from them, right? I just wanna be nice. But I think I'm derailing. But the point is, it's no small thing for adolescence to exist. It's no small thing for it to achieve what it does. Like at the end, again, as the dad cries over his son's plushie, right? And he asks for forgiveness. I'm not a dad. I don't have a son. I might not ever will, and I don't really care, right? I'm not a British person. I'm not fucking Stephen Graham. Like I share almost no aspect of him, except maybe that we are both men, I guess. I share no aspect with him, but then how come I sob like a baby for that scene? Like how come I share his weight? How come I share his emotion, even though we're so far ahead? Because I understood by the way the series is made that the overwhelming weight of society that made his son kill another person and give him this never ending and probably never be solved anxiety and uncertainty and responsibility. I know I'm under that same bubble, that big bubble that either you're young or old. I'm under that same bubble, feeling the same pressure, feeling the same responsibility, feeling the same anxiety. Because these people are right next to me. Like, you can denounce, you can try to be better, but the anxiety is there. It is as there as like for him as a fictional character as is it there for like real people that are going through this, and it's there for people like me who are like just a part of it. Right? Like the guy next to you on the Twitch chat that says inappropriate shit, like he's right there, and sadly they're like your human brethren. So this adolescence has no answers, only questions, and it can only hope that it doesn't fall into deaf ears. And you make these questions to yourself, and at the end you get into the conclusion that it's never worth it to exploit other people. It's never worth it to be non-empathetic. It's never worth it to be like getting driven by anger when all we want is to be happy. You can't be happy with anger. That doesn't happen. Even though you want to make yourself believe that. And all of that thanks to the front page of no, I was going to say Twitch, to the front page of Netflix. Does that mean that I'm gonna I'm gonna begin paying more attention to the front page of Netflix? Who knows? I may be losing on the good stuff, right? Maybe if I see like a British flag or something waving at my face, I might go, yeah, I'm gonna give this thing a shot. Go cry by watching the end of Adolescence. Go think. Go, I don't know, be empathetic, be nice. be loving, whatever you want to do. Just try to be nice. Good, Michael. So, see you all next time. Thank you for listening to me. And, well, I don't know if I can guarantee it, but I guarantee you next episode is not going to be as emotional as this one. Perhaps. Who knows? Thank you for listening and see you next time.